Hey, everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs, and brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war-wearing author Mia Moses the Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with an amazing lady who is a licensed therapist in Dearborn, Michigan, and providing services for depression, anxiety, and blended families facing difficulties. And she was born and raised in Detroit and often referred to as the neighborhood counselor by family and friends. We'll get to that in just a minute. I mean, we can always use some counseling, right? She worked for years at Ford Credit and began a career in the psychological services, graduated from University of Michigan Dearborn and Spring Arbor University. And she also founded a private practice in '06, founded a Truth Party for relationships in '09. And she also has a new film out, which is an original documentary exploring the lives of three women striving to overcome suffering caused by relationships with the moms, and also details generational pain, the challenges, and everything else. It's called Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Detroit, right here in the heart of the Motor City, the amazing licensed therapist in Dearborn and author and the director of the movie and founder, Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Nneka Owens. Nneka, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And what a wonderful welcoming. Thank you so much, Mike Wagner. I appreciate that.
And it's great to have you on board as well, too. I mean, you got an amazing story. You're a licensed therapist in Dearborn, Michigan. You're also born and raised in Detroit, and you're often referred as the neighborhood counselor. And you also worked for years at Ford Credit, and you went to begin a career in psychological services, graduated from University of Michigan Dearborn and Spring Arbor University. You found your private practice in '06. You found Truth Party for relationships in '09. And you also have a film that's coming out, Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters. I mean, you've got a keen score of accomplishments, so this has got to be the big one. And before getting all that, Nneka, tell us how you first got started.
Well, it all started on the west side of Detroit. Like you said, I was the neighborhood counselor. I was always that kid that wanted to see everybody happy. And so even if you didn't want advice, I was given advice. I was called Mother Wise. I was called so many different things because I was just that young girl who always just wanted to talk and see people happy. I remember in high school, you know how they have the mock elections and they say, hey, what do you want to be? And I just said, I want to be the greatest psychologist ever. Right. So
Nice.
yes, and that's what I wanted to do. And I remember people discouraging me from doing it because they said, oh, that's not a lucrative job and career, and you're gonna, be consumed with other people's problems. So you really want to do that. So I was kind of influenced in a way, and I didn't go right away into psychology. I ended up going into business because I was influenced by that. And then I would say after 10 years working in the business field, I'm like, this is not my calling. This is not what I want to do. I saw people in their cubicles typing and just being complacent in some ways. And I'm like, this is not what I want to do. So I went back to school and got a master's in counseling. And so here I am, just trying to expand my reach, wanting to see people living in total wellness, because mental health, if you don't have good mental health, everything else suffers. And so that's my mission, to help people, one, to just end the stigma of mental illness and just really help people to recognize if they do have some mental health challenges that they get help.
And certainly rightfully as well too. And it made me think about being a young girl, always wanting to make people happy, listen to problems, sit down. Makes me think of Lucy in Peanuts, where it's like, Charlie Brown and Linus always come up to the booth. It's like, tell me about your problems, give me advice. That'll be 5 cents, please. Plink, just put it in
Right.
the jar. Yeah.
That's a good one. You know what? I forgot about that, Mike. You are absolutely right. I'm going to have to go back and look at that
Mm.
because you're right. I love it. I love it. Yes.
It just makes me think of it too. I've been reading Peanuts, since like birth practically. It's one of the first books I read. Of course, move on to bigger and better things. Wish I could show you my cabinet, but it's been hidden behind the whole walls here, and somebody had like just locked it shut and everything else. I have to tear it down one day too. So we have that. So
Nice.
and what was that one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you're doing for the rest of your career?
Um, Again, like just encountering so many different women and men that had stories to tell, but didn't necessarily know how to tell those stories. That in the African American community, I think mental health therapy historically has not been something that has been welcome, because of the stigma behind it. But I think here in the last few decades, I think things have picked up in terms of, African Americans recognizing that, hey, it's okay, to say that you need help and it's not a form of weakness. And so it's just been important to me to just, be that person to inspire others to get help.
Hmm. And of course, besides the common problems that you see out there, what are some of the other problems that people faced, the challenges and everything else, and maybe something that we don't know about? What are some of the other unique challenges out there?
Well, what I'm seeing here lately that's been really troubling is that a lot of young people, a lot of teenagers are suffering with anxiety and depression. And I think it just breaks my heart to see. It breaks my heart to see young people suffer with anxiety and depression. And unfortunately, sometimes in some cases, parents aren't necessarily um open to the possibilities of their kids suffering with anxiety, so they kind of dismiss it. So that's one of the things right now that I'm just really trying to encourage people to recognize it's not a fault. I think sometimes people feel like if my child is suffering with anxiety, it's something that I've done wrong. Yeah, in some cases we can tweak some things at home, but sometimes it is a chemical imbalance. It can be a history. But that's right now, I think, Mike, I'm really concerned about our children who suffer with anxiety and depression and don't necessarily feel like they have the right environment to express that, because a lot of times people will say, oh, you have all these great things going for you, why are you depressed? So it's like a slap in the face, and so then you have kids who are silent. So that's one of the things that I'm really focused on now, is just really trying to educate parents. If your kid is saying that they're depressed, don't dismiss it. Let's kind of take it seriously and get them the help that they need.
Mhm, and also too, I've been hearing a lot of reports about it as well too, that especially if they're on social media 24/7, that's also, on the rise as well too, back like, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, social media was just, going outside, talking to people and everything. It's just like, how can we apply the principles, like 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, solve these problems to today's kids? It seems like, dealing with social media is like a totally different animal. And it's almost like, it's like, what do we do?
That is very true. And just limiting your kids from social media. I mean, I think a lot of kids don't have the social intelligence to interact in some cases face to face, and so they rely on social media. They can be behind a computer, be behind their phone, and they have all the courage in the world, but when it comes to really dealing with people face to face in person, they're a little handicapped. So I would agree that then there's that social anxiety piece, because I'm not necessarily encountering people in person, but I'm behind the screen. So that is a real issue, Mike, in terms of kids and social media, cyberbullying, and those things like that. So that is a real concern.
Mhm, and also too that, we dealt with bullying, back in a different day. It's just like, even way back, you simply just met up in the back or something like that, or after school, you just, duke it out and everything else. And you sometimes wonder, did it work or did it not work? And does it really carry over? You make friends and everything, and of course, it's programmed all different. Sometimes you wonder, did it really help or did it really not? Back in the day, it's kind of like maybe just let's get some ideas here that what we learned, could it work and everything else?
What, in terms of how we used to resolve conflicts and how
Correct.
we
Yes.
deal with
Correct.
that?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be nice to go back to those days, because I think right now how kids resolve conflict, either they don't resolve it, or when they do resolve it is catastrophic. It's the end. So it would be nice to go back to, in some regard, how we used to resolve things, and it's not so catastrophic. It's more, let's duke it out. And that's necessarily encouraging fighting. But today's kids, I mean, it gets really serious. It gets really serious, almost, well, fatal almost. Well, fatal in some cases. And so, yeah, it would be nice to, you know, define it in another way. Seek solutions in another way.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Right. And it also happens to, not just with kids, also relationships, father, son, father, daughter, mother, son, and especially mother, daughter as well. And that's part of your movie, Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters. We'll get to that in just 1 minute with Nneka Owens. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at SoundCloudStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia. Available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be there first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews, and Eve Levin enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia. Available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music. Also, heard on Hamilton Radio every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Also on BitChute and Rumble, and a few networks and platforms coming soon. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. I'll support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. We're here with the producer of the movie Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters, also licensed therapist. And she's based out of Detroit right now. You're here on the Mike Wagner Show, Nneka Owens. And you also went on to become a certified mother-daughter coach, and also helping out as well, too. And tell us about that. And, of course, the inspiration behind it, which also leads to the movie as well.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. Such a great question. I remember I had been practicing for over 10 years, and I had met this young lady. Her name was Yvette Kay, and it was in 2018. And she talked about the problems that she had in her relationship with her mother. And the stories were very just troubling. It just did not sound like a mother-daughter relationship. And it was so alarming that I had to reflect. I said to myself, wow, I had such a good relationship with my mom. I just never thought that. I thought that all mothers were loving and kind. And based on what she was telling me, that her mother was not loving and kind.
Ooh.
So I wanted to understand the psychology. So I recognized that problematic mother-daughter relationships just doesn't happen in the African-American community. I started hearing her story really got my attention. It seems like I started hearing more and more stories that were coming into my office, of all races. But I wanted to focus on the African-American community because I wanted to understand the psychology behind it. And it wasn't to demonize Black mothers, because that's not what we want to do, because I get that mothers were once daughters themselves. So I wanted to understand how slavery, how epigenetics, and how untreated mental illness play a role in how mothers can be disconnected from their daughters. And so I start meeting more women. And so I asked 3 women if they would like to share their stories. We, got all the legal stuff, involved because, they were once clients. So I had to make sure that those things were in place. But I felt like I learned so much from these ladies. I'm a mother of 3 kids. And granted that I take care of my kids, but sometimes there's some subtle things that we can do to not take care of our kids. And so it made me more conscious of how I was interacting with my kids, because mothers set the tone for all relationships. And not to say that fathers don't have a role, because they absolutely do, but it was so important to me to understand. So that's when I went to get a certification as a mother-daughter coach, because I wanted to understand that this is not something that's isolated just to the African-American community. This is something that's a real problem. So I wanted to expand my reach and understand more. And so then I decided, you know what, I'm going to make a film. So we're making the film, and it's been 4 years in the making because COVID happened and that kind of paused things a bit. And
Hmm.
then just funding. So it was basically self-funded. Yes, we had some donations, thank God. But it was basically self-funded. And my husband at some point says, Nneka, we really are going to, the next go around, we're going to have to really figure out a way to, get sponsors and have, have people pay for these documentaries, because it is important. I feel like I said, if people could be in my sessions and hear the compelling stories in a way as a way to grow, we would all be so different. We would all, because no one walks around telling their story. No one walks around telling their story.
Hmm.
And I think it's so important that we hear these stories so that we all can grow and be better.
And do you think social media makes it easier to tell stories, or is it like, the same like it was maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, or a little more difficult?
Yeah, I think social media is a nice platform to share stories. I believe it is. Absolutely.
Okay. And also too, with you hear about the problems of mother, daughter, your relationship coach and everything else. What are some more common problems that moms or daughters come into the office, and what were some of the more challenging ones that you kind of was the most challenging, and how did you manage to overcome?
Well, let me think. There's so many. In some cases, it's mothers don't necessarily see the error of their ways because they're mom. They feel like I birthed you, I did all these wonderful things for you. And so sometimes it's hard for a mom to accept that, you know what, I may have missed it. And so just trying to get them, because a lot of times, you have your daughter and you think, oh, you're being sensitive. I didn't really do that. I'm doing all these wonderful things for you. Yes, and you may be doing these wonderful things. But if your daughter is saying, hey, this is how I experience you, it's worth it for you to try to tap in and understand that. So sometimes it's having mothers humble themselves and say, you know what, I need to make some changes. And I think that can be some of the challenges. And I try to make sure that the mother is not feeling attacked. I think that's really important, that a mom doesn't feel like she's attacked, so that she can receive. She's got to create an environment so they can receive it, because it can be hard to hear that, you know what, you missed it. But there's ways to get back on track and get it right.
And what are some of the ways they're able to get back on track? You can just give off like a couple of few without, giving everything away. Maybe just a couple of tips or just a couple of solutions.
Yeah, I think having, because we live in ourselves, like I often tell my clients, the mothers, your daughter sees you more than you see yourself, and you see her more than she sees herself. So sometimes things can become so normalized that you don't see it. So it's important that you allow yourself to be influenced by your daughter. So when you kind of put it that way, and then not only that, when you ask that mother, what kind of relationship did you have with your mother? And she starts to reflect on what kind of relationship she had with her mother. And she said, okay, you know what? I didn't make that connection. So you start having her make the connection that, you know what? I didn't necessarily have a really good relationship with my mom. This is how I experienced my mom. So maybe I am passing this down and I'm not aware of it. Because again, sometimes things become so normalized, you don't know you're doing it. So when you take that approach and you have them reflect on their relationship with their mother, sometimes it clicks like, maybe I'm repeating the same bad cycle. So
Mhm.
that's a technique that I typically use, asking them, how did they experience their mother? And so in some cases, they're repeating their mother's behavior.
Mhm. And of course, sometimes it's generational curses as well too that can also affect as well too. Some could be challenging, some could be easy as well too. And of course, there's pain, recovery, emotional trauma, and everything else. Before we continue with Beauty from the Ashes, a journey of $3 with Nneka Owens here on the Mike Wagner Show. You also found the Truth Party as well too, back in '09, Truth Party for Relationships, and tell us more about that organization.
Yeah, that was something, and that was like the parent of these organizations that I've companies that I've started. Truth Parties for Relationships was a way for me to get single men and women together to explore their truth, because so often we just we could, it's easy for us to get into relationships, but the hard part is managing them. And the managing is important it's important to understand that if you can't manage a relationship, what's the reason that you can't manage a relationship? What were some of the examples that you've seen in your mother and, with your mother and your father? So the truth parties were a way for single men and women to come together to explore their truth so they can kind of get a sense of why they're failing in relationships. And when I think about it, everything that I've done thus far is all about the truth. That's like behind the 90% of what we go through in life is about our past. Only 10% is about the here and now. So when I have a couple come into my office and they ask, they have poor communication, they're fighting, there's infidelity, and they say, this is the problem, Nneka, this is the problem. And I'm like, really, that's not the problem. That's 10%. Let's explore the 90%, the truth. So that's the truth. That's the 90. Always trying to encourage people to go a little deeper. That's like that onion that you peel the layers back of the onion.
Yes,
Every
yes,
single pull
yes.
the layer. Or Mike, when you look at the tip of the iceberg, on the iceberg, when the Titanic was traveling, all you saw was the tip. You didn't see the massive amount of ice that was underneath. And so for me, that's the story. That's the 90%. That's the truth. And we don't necessarily see that. We only see poor communication. We see infidelity. We see anger. Those are the things that we see, but we don't see what's attached to the anger, what's attached to the poor communication, what's attached to the abuse. So we normally just kind of stay on surface.
And of course, talking about the three women as well, too, in the movie Beauty from Ashes, The Journey of Three Daughters. And of course, how did they manage to get through? We'll talk about it with Nneka Owens in just 1 minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. And brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international war-ring author Mia Moses Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters, Nneka Owens, after this time out. We're back with Nneka Owens with A Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters here on the Mike Wagner Show. And of course, we're certainly looking forward to this. It's about three daughters as well, too. It's an original documentary exploring the lives of three women striving to overcome suffering caused by relationships with their mothers, details generational pain, the challenge of recovery, and of course, emotional trauma and more as well, too. And, tell us about the three daughters and their unique journey. And of course, don't give too much away unless you want to. And how they manage to overcome it.
Well, I think throughout one of the things that they say, it wasn't until they learned that other daughters experience some trauma, because a lot of times they think they're alone, that no one else is experiencing this. And so one of the things that they've come to realize is like, I'm not alone. And not only that I was worthy of love. It wasn't something that I did to not be able to receive love from my mom. It was my mom had her own set of their mothers had their own set of issues. So before they were blaming themselves. And so when they started this process of going through the documentary, telling their stories, they came to they came to recognize that, one, I'm not alone. There are other women that are suffering. Two, our mothers were once daughters and they didn't resolve. So some of the unresolved issues that their grandmothers and their mothers suffered is now being passed down onto them. So I think having that revelation, it helped in the healing process. Although they're still suffering in some ways, they have that piece of information to recognize it wasn't something that I did to cause my mother not to be disconnected to me.
And of course, what are some example of generational curses and everything else? One of the more common ones. What's been the most difficult they've experienced, you've seen, and everything else?
Can you repeat that question one more time, Mike?
I'm sorry about the generational curses. What are some more common ones, and what are some that's like the most unusual and the most challenging to break, but manage to overcome?
Well, I think with some of their mothers, it was a lot of sexual abuse, mental abuse. Those things have been passed down, and unresolved issues. Like I said, we even talk about slavery, how slavery, although their mothers weren't slaves, a lot of times we have to realize that there are certain behaviors and practices that can be passed down. And so one of the things that they've come to realize is that whether it's drug addiction, like I said, sexual abuse, those things, moms, they didn't necessarily get help for. So they just continued on with life, having children, not realizing that I need to resolve these issues, not resolving the issues, just kind of, suppressing those, traumas, and you continue to just pass those things down. So I would say some of the common things, like I say, is, whether it's sexual abuse, mental abuse, addiction issues, alcoholism, those are the things, some of the challenges that the mothers face.
And certainly a lot of them as well too. And of course, they managed to overcome and everything else. And just viewers will experience one woman who received therapy in your practice, hearing details about verbal sexual abuse, and of course, oldest of a drug addicted single parent. And you also
Yeah.
have just building community as well too, just having something in common and grassroots, and just simply have a message behind it. And yes, there is hope.
Yeah, there is hope. Like I said, once we normalize, I hate to normalize this conversation, but it is, unfortunately, in some cases, it is, I won't say normal, it's common. Let me just say common. That's the better word. It's common in some cases for mothers and daughters to be disconnected if mothers and grandmothers don't resolve the issues of the past. And so at some point someone has to say, let's resolve these issues so we don't continue to pass this down. So I think one of the things that my hope is that we can have this conversation, because mothers, we want to protect moms, and I understand that, but I think truth is important. It's important that we know the truth so that we can heal. If we continue to suppress and stuff and it didn't happen, be in denial about things, no one really can heal. And so people suffer in silence. And so the documentary was a way for people to really rise above the pain and say, hey, you're not alone. Your mother's, um, you were worthy of love. It wasn't, you did nothing to not be loved. It's that your mother and your grandmother, they didn't choose to resolve these issues, and now that's what you're choosing to do to kind of break this cycle of abuse.
And of course, lastly, how can we help, and what can we do to support and also support the cause?
Well, I think it would be nice if we just continue to have the conversation. I think at some point we do need more funding. That funding would be wonderful. Because it has been, like I said, this has been a love project for me. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I like to see mothers, and I have a daughter of my own. So it's important to me that, you know, I set the right tone for my daughter. Uh, Going forward, because it's not just a one and done. What I would like to do after the documentary is to create mother daughter workshops, mother daughter retreats, because mothers and daughters need to bond. We need to bond because it gives, when you have a mother and a daughter that has a good relationship, that daughter, there's nothing that she cannot achieve if she has a healthy relationship with her mother. She's going to use that as a base for her other relationships. So it's so important that we're intentional about our relationships with our daughters. And that is going to be perfect, because it's not going to be perfect, but at least let us be intentional. Let's apologize when we need to apologize and make corrections where we need to make corrections.
And then next time your daughter says, "Hey, can I borrow $100 so I can buy a new phone?" Just say, "Let's put it towards the movie instead."
There you go, Mike. That's right. Let's put it toward the movie. So we're definitely going to have to work toward, me doing fundraising. I'm not really good at fundraising. I would rather just do it myself in some cases, because I don't want to have to ask. But that's something that I have to work on, that I got to be better at saying, hey, I need help with this.
Something, speaking of help as well too, like how can we help fund the project, and where can we send money, and how do we get involved with the project, like volunteer or send and everything like that, like how can we help contribute?
Yeah, they can go to behind the 90 with Nneka.com. So again, that's behind the 90 and 90, behind the 90 with Nneka, behind the 90 with Nneka.com. So if they want to donate, hit that donation button and make a donation. That would really help. The premieres this Saturday, but there's still so much more work to do. Again, this documentary is not a one and done. We still have so much more work to do to really push this conversation forward about the importance of healthy mother-daughter relationships.
And then when they donate, what methods of payment do you take? Visa, MasterCard, Discover, PayPal, and what else do you
Absolutely.
guys take?
We do Cash App. Well, like I said, if you go to the website, it's a pretty simple. It's a PayPal. You can put in your credit card. There's two options. You can do PayPal or you can do your credit card. But it
All
would
right.
really. Mhm.
We'll certainly do so as well too. And do you also have a GoFundMe as well?
I did have a GoFundMe. I took it down recently, but right now I'm just using the behind the 90 with Nneka.com as a way of donating.
Okay. And where can we find the film at?
Well, right now it's not. We are supposed to put it on Vimeo come February. So that's me and M. Ferguson. We're working on my PR person. We're working on that now. But right now we're doing the premiere on Saturday. So come February, we're looking to actually put it in different different platforms.
Okay, we'll certainly check that out with Nneka Owens and Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters here on the Mike Widener Show. And just a few more things, Nneka, that what else can we expect from you in 2022 and 23 and beyond?
I really, that's a great question. And thank you for asking me that. I really want to do more short stories. Well, the documentary was a feature film because it was it's 2 hours long. But what I would really like to do, I would like to do short film centered around just education and just really raising awareness on different topics as it relates to mental illness. So little
Okay.
short stories. Yes, that's what I would like to do.
All right, we'll certainly check that out. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
My biggest influence in my career. Wow. There's so many. Um, I know this is the typical Oprah Winfrey. I think one of the things that influenced me about her, she had well, some years ago, I was on this reality show on the OWN network called Unfaithful Stories of Betrayal. And it was at that time when I was the therapist lending advice in terms of infidelity on this network, and I looked at these stories and I'm like, wow, this is something that I would really like to do. So I would say Oprah Winfrey, not only that, because she has problematic, I mean, she has some issues with her mom too. So I'm thinking this is something that if I could get it to Oprah, it would be really great. It would be really great. So I would say Oprah, her network, they influenced me in a great way.
And never know, she could be watching right this moment. You never know. So
That would be wonderful. I wouldn't doubt it. You have a really popular, successful podcast, radio show, web show. You do. So yes.
and I appreciate it. Thank you very much as well. And great guests like you just make it happen.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. And lastly, what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Be intentional. I think it's so important that we all are reflective of self because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. I think it's so important that we reflect on who we are and where we're going. And if there's some changes that need to be made, make the changes. Because everything, when you think about it, everything is about a relationship. Most of the disturbance that we experience in life is due to a relationship or the lack thereof.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Yes.
a very good point as well, too. And once again, with Nneka Owens of Beauty from Ashes, A Journey of Three Daughters, licensed therapist in Detroit and Dearborn, Michigan, from Detroit on the Mike Widener Show. Nneka, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people check out the film and everything else?
But the trailer is on YouTube, and it's behind the 90 with Nneka. So if they want to go to the trailer, they can do that. And then even for my therapy practice, it's owenstherapy.com. So all that's on there. So that's probably a little easier to get to because it's, easier. Owenstherapy.com is another way they can kind of tap into some of the things that I'm doing.
All right, we'll certainly check that out. And if anybody needs some help, you can contact her as well. Once again, Nneka, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love have you back. We wish all the best. And Nneka, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Well, thank you so much. Bless you, Mike Wagner. I appreciate the time that you've given me.